Now, timing is incredibly important in landscape photography, and what I hope to demonstrate today is getting it just right and getting the best pictures possible. Now, a couple of years ago, I did this walk, which is called the Nantler Ridge Walk, and I got it completely wrong because I got my timings wrong. The weather was actually good, but I was at the wrong place at the wrong time and I missed it. So what I'm doing today is I'm making careful note of the weather conditions, and I'm approaching the route in the opposite direction, which will place me in the best positions, hopefully, when the weather clears up. You see up there somewhere there's a big mountain ridge. Now that is completely shrouded in mist and low cloud, and is likely to be possibly 2 or 3 or more hours. So I'm doing the low part of the walk first this time. I'm going to circle back up there later, and if it all works out well, I will get some spectacular views whilst enjoying the low part of the walk where I've got plan B.
Now, I don't really like spending a large part of the day trying to get to one location for one shot. I think that's quite wasteful. There are many hours when I'm hiking through beautiful scenery like this, and obviously I want to make the most of that and try and get some images of these probably less spectacular locations while I'm climbing up to the more dramatic scenes with the grand vistas. So this is very important to me to get this timing right. There are shots which work down here, the sort of lowland areas, which won't work on top. And that's the whole gist of today's video. It's to sort of get your timing right with the weather, because if you do, you can get some very good shots in locations where you wouldn't normally expect them. I've got some amazing light. I mean, the drama's fantastic. So all in all, a pretty good start doing it this way round.
So this is plan B, or should I say really part of plan A. Now plan B is to make the most of these beautiful old mine workings while the weather is favourable for this sort of shot, because look at the skies, look at the surroundings, look at the mood and the atmosphere. And I've got my black and white film loaded in a couple of cameras, and while it's like this, I'm gonna, make hay, make lemonade, whatever you want to call it. Couldn't be better.
Now, in addition to my usual 35mm SLR film camera, I was carrying a Holga 135, which is a very simple single element plastic lens, which takes 35mm film and gives you vignetting. It gives you grain, it gives you a lack of definition, but that's perfect for conditions like this. Now, I did only get one good image with the Holga on this particular trip, which is a bit of a shame because, and this is the one by the way, I think the mood suits the soft lens very well. It's very fuzzy towards the edges, it's only sharp in the centre, but it has got lots of drama. But I think my heart on this day was to get on top of the hills. So, plan B to shoot round here was somewhat curtailed by my haste to get away and get the big shot. So maybe next time, little Holga.
Well, I'm very pleased with that. It's a good start to the day. I'm out of the wind. As you can see, the skies are showing signs of clearing in the distance, but still, my mountain peaks are completely obscured.
Now, these lower locations really do benefit from this sort of weather. They don't suit the bright skies and the clear openness that you want maybe for the grander vistas. They do suit this dullness. I mean, slate is a very, very dramatic stone. Looks great when it's wet. And when I've got clouds up in the sky, as I had this morning, it was very, very good. I mean, it's one of those things where you don't appreciate it at the time. You're marching along thinking, oh, it's grim today. It's very dull and grey. But that's exactly what you want as a landscape photographer, especially black and white. I mean, this is one taken with the SLR. And I love the foreground trees. There's a little bit of white foliage on them, and the background just fades away beautifully to those hills with that subtle cloud at the top. And this is what I'm talking about when I say getting the timing right. This is ideal weather for this scene.
Right, we're going to go up this waterfall area now into the top of the ridge itself. And you may have noticed the skies haven't cleared yet, but they weren't forecast to. And I'm still optimistic that they will, and I'm glad they haven't, because I would like to be there as they clear and I start to see the peaks coming through. And I think I've got the right film, camera, and importantly filters to do it justice.
Now, similar to a number of recent videos I've put out all about timing and landscape photography, my hopes are definitely high here that I've got it right, and you can see it is starting to lift off the tops, but not the very tops. So as I climb and the cloud climbs with me, I'm going to get the views but not have those horribly blue open skies. I still want some drama.
Bit of a tortuous route, but here we go. Still not cleared on the tops, as you can probably see, the very peaks. Still got cloud on them, so I'll have a coffee break here and then do the slog up to the obelisk, and that's where I hope to deploy the film and filters I mentioned before.
So finally, up onto the tops at last, and the skies are clearing magnificently. Now I'd put the red filter onto my camera now, my lens, so the drama, the atmosphere is enhanced somewhat. You can see the punchiness in the skies and the darker foreground, creating a greater contrast with that red filter over the usual yellow or yellow-green effect.
It continues to annoy me, evade me, challenge me, but I'm really sure that I'm probably right at the point where it's going to blow completely clear. Right, it has cleared finally. So the film and the filters, well, I've been shooting with Rollei Infrared 400 today, but just with a regular yellow-green filter, which doesn't give a very strong effect. But what I have brought with me is a deep red and the R72 infrared filter. Now it's going to be done handheld, and it's only possible because I have a stabilized Tamron zoom lens, which gives me about an extra 3 or 4 stops, so I can get down to that sort of 15th of a second that you need with this slow film and the R72 filter. And I'm not saying they're going to be spectacular. I hope they are.
Now I did eventually put the R72 filter on, and this is the only shot that came out properly, largely due to camera shake and poor composition, because I couldn't see a thing through it, as I'll mention in a minute. It's not actually a bad shot though now I've worked on it, and I think I should have persevered a little bit with that filter, even though the rest of them were junk. It came out well. But moving back to the red filter, you're getting pretty much the same effect here, almost as much without the white vegetation. So it's not something I think I would use again, the R72 with an SLR camera, just because you can't see through it and the shutter speeds are woefully slow. But the red filter was, as I say, giving me most of what I wanted. And to be honest, if I want to shoot infrared, I am probably better off using my little Canon G15, which is a dedicated digital infrared camera, which gives me all the look I want, especially when I process it in Lightroom with my own recipes, my own presets, if you like. But just look at the marvellous skies we've got now, and this is again with the red filter with the film. Look at the contrast in there and the grittiness and the grain. That's exactly what I'm after. Even though it's normally quite a smooth film, that's been accentuated here by my processing. So with the clouds just kissing the top of the major peaks now, I pressed on along the ridge, shooting all along the way. This is where most of the images were shot on the day, but that is the way it is with my walks. I suddenly come across scenes which work. I mean, this works again magnificently. I've got some sunlight which I've accentuated, picking out the path through the forest down the bottom, and a lovely layering of cloud at the top. Now, you can use graduated filters obviously with film and digital, but I do like to apply a lot of that later in post-processing.
You know, it's sometimes easy to forget when you're out on these walks and you're trying to make a video and you're trying to take stills and you're watching where you're putting your feet, just to take time and soak in the scenery. I mean, look at the view there behind me. I mean, it is just breathtaking on a day like today. I've only seen one other person all day. It's just, it is just amazing. And it's just something which I will never get tired of.
Yes, very important to appreciate the surroundings and the beauty and try and capture it on film and video as much as possible. But yeah, sometimes you've got to be careful with your equipment.
Well, I've actually just cracked the lens on my my old GoPro, sadly. They're pretty tough things, but you don't like being smacked on rocks.
Well, fortunately, it was only about £15 direct from GoPro to get a new one. Clip straight on and it's back into service. Well, okay, I gave up on the infrared filter. I took half a dozen shots. I couldn't see a thing through it, not a thing. So I set it to 15th of a second at f5.6 and pointed it in the rough direction of mountains, put it on infinity, clicked away. Don't know if they come out, but I've got the red filter back on now. I'm going to make the most of this wonderful late walk scenery. Now, worth mentioning that when you're shooting with coloured filters on black and white film, you are going to lose some light through the lens. Now, the green filter, the yellow green I use, is about 1 stop, but the red filter is at least 3 stops. Now I meter TTL through the lens when I'm using 35mm cameras. I don't use a handheld spot meter, and I'm using a lot of light. I'm losing a lot of light, but my stabilization does help. The Tamron lens I use has stabilization, although it's a great big pig plastic beast of a thing. It does allow me to shoot comfortably down to around a 15th of a second, or maybe an 1/8 if I'm lucky. So I have no problems in deploying the red filter. A little bit more difficult if I've got manual focus Nikkor lenses. That said, I typically only bring the red filter out on very bright days when there's enough light, and with a 400 speed film, even shooting with those manual lenses, you should be all right with it.
Well, I think I've had the best of the day now. It's only about 11 o'clock. No, but I've had the best of it, and I'm on the way down now. Some shots, some views. I'll throw a few pictures in to the vlog as I go down. Nearly 2 rolls of the Rollei IR 400. Wonderful film. Whether you're shooting at infrared or not, it's magnificent stuff. Just be interested to see how those deep red ones come out. Not so much the infrared ones. Anyway, I do hope you've enjoyed this excursion with me into the mountains, and I'll see you again on the next one.
Yeah, I think it's something I have mentioned on a number of occasions before, that by midday, you are probably getting the best look in terms of the punchiness of the clouds, but you also have to contend with the angle of the sun. Now, in summer, and we do occasionally get some summer in Britain, it can be pretty overhead and that can flatten things out. Nice little train shot there. But I prefer the earlier light, even though the skies and the clouds may not be as dramatic as they are here, because the modelling is better. That said, I was fortunate here that a cloud came over and gave me some dramatic shadow over the peaks as I shot them from the side with a long extension on the zoom. But overall, I would say this is now too bright for my style of photography, and I would normally deploy the little infrared digital camera, which gives me that punchiness. So I prefer the early morning over these midday shots, but that's just me. Everyone's different. That's photography.